All right. Now we have the Houston BCS. We're going to be doing a more post-tournament meta analysis and seeing all the decks that are here and how they ended up doing in Top Cut and their placements and why these players may have played them. I was at BCS Houston. Unfortunately, I didn't do too well. There will be a video on that soon. But thanks to Weiss Tea Time and I guess partially Bushy Road for, showing us the entire overview of decks. We're able to break everything down. Look at how the meta seems to shape up, especially because there isn't that many US tournaments to look at since it's like what, five or six, 4 or 5 per year. But hopefully as Weiss expands, we might get more tournaments in the future. All right, so the first thing we're going to look at is this deck here. Kanata Marine is what people normally call it. And the reason why I think he made it here is a lot of times, right, when you summon 2 to 3 level 3s, they do something meaningful, like this one heals and gather resources, and your opponent can't answer it, you're going to have a really good time against your opponent. On top of that, because Hololive has a lot of cards that can tech in, right? They have this anti-change counter, they have this rest counter, even the changer itself is a counter, a 3k backup. So a lot of times, unless it's a card that removes it completely from the field, you're not going to get rid of this card that easily, because this card's sitting at around 12k, right? Because this card specifically, can give it 1k power. So if you have 2 of them, it's going to give it 2k power, making it 12k. So the counter here is 15k. So things like, that time I got reincarnated slime, it's going to have a hard time getting over it. Nikke is going to have a hard time getting over it as well. So that's why this is pretty good. Those Alices don't really sit that high. And this doesn't depend on a standby to get the cards out. And then Marine is a very cheap finisher. And here's some cool techs you can do. Because you're opening up lanes, you can even use the Toa over here to bring up the opponent's back row if you're winning board and kill their back row now. So now you're just constantly, you bring up your back row, you sack it, and you get ready to kill it. And when you play the combo again, you can just grab this back again. You can continuously just delete your opponent's back row, and that's going to slow them down quite a bit. So this deck has always been, passable. It's been pretty good. And the reason why I think it's good now, or at least from this tournament specifically, is that there's still not enough field removal to warrant, not playing this. Because, if, people saying top sets in the game are Bang Dream, right? Nikke. These are the 2 top sets people are saying. Well, what's going to happen here is one of those sets has a very poor chance of removing this, while the other one may or may not, depending on whether it hits level 2 first, to remove this. So you can see how this can continuously, grind out your opponent. And like I said, you can play this over this and then change back to get the extra heal. So I think that wraps it up for this deck. Congrats. And, Kanata Marine is, kind of resurfacing a little bit here. So the next deck we're going to talk about is Bang Dream. I'm not going to go over every Bang Dream deck shown here. I'm just going to talk about this one fully in detail and the rest a little bit on the finishers. But Bang Dream is a deck that if you're just playing a deck that you just want to play solitaire, ignore your opponent, and drop finisher, that's Bang Dream. Because there are 2 components that make that possible. You have this level 1 combo here that has 2 modes. You can either get extra stock and power, or you can grab, top check 4, or grab any character, rest go to waiting room. Now, in Weiss, a lot of times when you play a level 1 combo or an advantage combo gets killed, you have to go look for it again. In this deck, because you have this 1-0 that can call this one out from the waiting room, you're now in a position to have 2 turns your combo very reliably. And on top of that, you have other cards here, right? You have this to check top 4. You have this card here that can sack cards and get extra cards. So Bang Dream is a set that will keep plussing and plussing, and then eventually try to kill you. They're going to hope that their sheer advantage and gaining stock to have good deck states is enough to tip the balance in their favor. Now, if they happen to eat damage a little bit early, and they, in the mid game they're sitting at like 2-4 or something, it can easily loop this healer. This Mortis healer can be played regardless of color requirement, and it's a one stock healer, right? It heals to stock. And this is actually kind of insane because you can go, play two level one combo, no, play one level one combo, play this card this card right here, and then heal. Then after healing, you can step over it with another level one combo, and then sack this to grab this back and heal again. So there's two heals. You can even play over this again and hit double brainstorm, or you hit your brainstorm and try to get it back again. And then you can just, if you have like a lot of hand, you can now mill your deck out and get your stock back. And it's like you pay that stock to heal, and then you just get it back. And that's why Bang Dream is extremely powerful. Now there's 3 different finishers you can use. This person is using this blue one, which does not need its climax combo to activate its finishing ability, but it's search 2. So what happens here, the goal here is you play 3 of these, you take 6 characters out of your deck, and this means you have a high chance of hitting climaxes to burn your opponent and defeat them. The only problem, this is variance, and no one knows how much damage this card will do. Most of the time, it's a single burn 2, but if you get a double burn 2, you have damage numbers similar to our Gura from Hololive. The other reason why this deck is very strong is it has a 1-costed stock swap at level 2. So what ends up happening here is that you're able to threaten people's deck states, right, with this card, and you don't lose as much. Slime is a level 0, but a lot of times when you play it, it's level 2 or level 3. That's like the best time to play stock swap if you're trying to disrupt the opponent. The downside here is if it fails, you only lost 1 stock, so you can still get things back, and hand is not a problem with a Bang Dream. So that is what makes Bang Dream threatening, right? It gets a lot of resources, and it has a good enough finisher to close the game out, and it can heal loop fairly easily at level 2. So congrats again for making top 16. So next thing we're going to talk about is Frieren. Now, this is a set that came out earlier this year, and people thought it was going to do a lot of things. It didn't see a lot of, representation, at least in Top Cut. And I think the issue here is that there were just other sets to play, right? There's Slime, and there's other things to do. Now, Frieren is what I call a very solid set. It has everything you want from a set, and it is pretty good in the current state of the game. In the sense of like Bang Dream. So Bang Dream threatens, stock swap, right? The 2-1 event. And this finisher doesn't require that many resources to do it. It's just dish 2. And literally, if you're a sack lord, for 0 stock, you can get 2 to 3 of these out. And that is because this changes from a brainstorm here, and it makes it hexproof, which allows it to not worry about things like Nikkei's tap counter or Hololive's tap counter, like these rest counters that rest the opponent's cards. So, there's different ways to play it. A lot of people end up playing the level 1 blue combo, but this guy is playing the level 1, which is more of your like standard combo, right? Check top 4, add 1 risk, go to waiting room. So really the point of this combo is keep pushing damage at the opponent, and then drop your finishers and just bombard them with a bunch of damage for very cheap. You even have this early play here that can sometimes burn your opponent. Like whether you have the resources not to pay 3 ditch 2, you probably do. So you're at early game, like at level 2, not only are you healing, but you can push your opponent to 3 a lot easier with this. And because this doesn't require much resources in terms of stock, you're good. And this also grabs cards from your deck. So it like replaces itself, which is really strong. The other thing is you have this double drop searcher. These cards are really strong, right? On attack, ditch 2, pay 1, ditch 2, search 2. This means that you're almost always every game getting triple if you draw 1. Now, Frieren is like, I guess like what people would argue, right, is that why play Frieren when I can just play Bang Dream, right? And I think I think that's definitely a case, but I think like Frieren is still competent enough to play. And if you don't have Bang Dream, well, you might as well play Frieren. But yeah, this has anti-damage, right? So it stops, if it has a full field, you can stop an attack, which is definitely possible because your finisher doesn't require that much stock. So you can decide to play defensive if you want. And then you have this 3-1, which allows you to, like, it dumps the opponent's stock in their deck, shuffles their deck, and then puts the same number of stock back from the top of their deck. That's, you don't have like what Hololive and Bang Dream has, but this is like your next best option. And as long as your opponent's stock wasn't dirty, it can't get worse. So you're basically trying to add more RNG on your finishing turn, and that is because your damage numbers are very high. It's triple burn 4. That's 6 instances of damage. So Frieren's a solid set. I'm pretty sure how I think this deck got here, right, is I think that while moving towards Swiss rounds and getting into top cut, if a lot of people aren't prepared to have a good deck state on the Frieren's finishing turn, they can just blow them out. Another way is, like I said, if you play one of these at level 2, hit a burn 4, if they eat 2 attacks, they're probably at level 3. And now if they can't kill the Frieren player is going to drop these 3 of these Frierens and kill them. You also have, the 2-1 bounce over here, which allows you to get rid of pesky cards. Like, let's say you can't change for whatever reason and they're not all hexproof, or 2 of them are not hexproof. I guess this helps you against like tap counter and stuff as well. But I mean, like, that's the advantage of playing Frieren, is that you don't have to worry about the opponent's like counterplay. It's like, what I like to say is, spray and pray. You just launch damage, and if you killed your opponent, cool. If you didn't, well, at least you tried. But yeah, and I believe this is one of our locals in Houston, so congrats to that. But yeah, like Frieren is a competent set. I do think it can top. It's just like there are so many options in the current format that may be better, and that's probably why you don't see people play it often. But the draw for Frieren, lining it up, is hexproof finishers. You don't have to care about what your opponent does, which can be very easy in a long like tournament setting of 7+ rounds. All right, so I'm going to talk about this finisher particularly. Same things apply to the previous Bang Dream deck, except now you have the ability to have a different way of killing your opponent. So, for example, this finisher, how it works is that, if the opponent cancels the attack, they take that same damage and it rolls over that effect to another one. So if this one cancels and you give it to, let's say this is number 1, and you give it to number 2, and then number 2 cancels, it does it twice, and then you can roll it over to number 3, and number 3 cancels, it does it twice again. The other way is if this cancels, you give it to number 3, and then the other one cancels, you give it to number 3. So if number 3 cancels, you do it 3 times. So if it's like I swing for 4, cancels, it's going to burn 4. And then it rolls over to number 3. Then if number 2 cancels for 3, burn 3. It rolls over to number 3. And then if number 3 cancels for like swing for 4, then it's burn 4 3 times. So it's a finisher that may or may not have reach, depending on whether your opponent blocks damage or not. But if your opponent's very close to 3 or at level 3, there's a high possibility they can die. Now, there are downsides, and that is this finisher sucks at killing from 2 for the simple fact that if you can take 10 damage, so you're at like 2-4, 2-3, around this standpoint, it's going to be hard for you to kill them, because if they just eat 2 attacks, then your finishing turn kind of sucks. And especially if they decide to attack with one that has 2 instances on it, and you just eat that 3 or 4, it's going to be really bad, because now their chances of killing you goes down the drain. They have nifty ways of getting this out to give it extra soul. They play this 2-1. If it reverses someone at level 2, it goes to memory, then it comes back at the next turn. And if you're level 3, you can tap it to summon out the level 3 from waiting room, and it gets an extra soul. So this helps the damage numbers depending on what you need to kill the opponent. I would argue this, remember this, if you're fighting Nikke, and they have Sin back row. It's a blue back row. It's like, pay 5 tap. It happens like after this comes. So if like after this comes out, so like once this comes back to the field, they can tap it, and it needs to tap for cost, and you got to watch out for that, because then you can't change with it. But that's about it on that aspect. Other than that, it plays almost identical to the other Bang Dream deck we saw. Yeah, there are different techs in here because this person is running red, but that it's just like when you see Bang Dream, it's generally a difference of finisher because they all are playing this event, right? The stock swap event, as people call it. But it all runs this crazy level 1. And this build may have off finishers, because you can roll it over to like any card, not itself. It's just any card you can roll over the cancel, redo the damage, and some people play this. Versus the blue one, you're just playing 3 finishers and calling it a day. So yeah, congrats, and you're gonna see Bang Dream a lot going forward until it gets hit on a ban list. All right, so here we have Ruby, which hasn't actually done much since its new cards got introduced, but it did get a couple of cards to make it more relevant. I think the reason why you never saw Ruby before is because Slime kind of warded this set off, because if your opponent has hexproof cards, this set's best finisher, at least, cannot do much. So if you look at its strongest finisher, it's tap itself and deal 3 damage and choose the opponent's card in front of it and send it to clock. So you cannot choose hexproof cards. That's what makes it kind of bad. But what ends up happening here is they added a new card where you can either choose, if this is your center stage, when you play the same climax as this level 3 over here, you can now restand a card. So what happens is you have more instances to try to finish the game, right? Because can you imagine, right? Like, your opponent's 3-0, you're like, burn 3. They take 3, clock kick. Okay, now they're at 4 damage, restand this card. Swing for 3. Oh, they took it, they're dead, right? You can see how this becomes, like, kind of hard, for the opponent to deal with. Like, it depends on what damage configuration you want, right? Because this can also deal 1 damage as well. So it can help in cases of where you need to actually attack or you can't attack, right? Like, here's the advantage, right? Like, current format has rest counter, right? So what ends up happening is you kick those dudes away, and now you can restand and attack instead of, like, how other finisher will have to actually attack into these rest counters if you can't get rid of the condition for them. So I think that, like, non-interaction at level 3 there kind of what solidifies this set's top end. The other thing is you have this. You have the OG stock swap, right? Like, dump the opponent's stock away and put the top card's deck into stock. This is very strong because you started seeing Bushrode is not really printing these cards anymore. They're printing what like to call stock shuffle, or other people like to call it stock wash, where basically it goes into the deck and then it cards come out of the deck. It's not as reliable as what we like to call stock swap, like the Milim and the 2-1 Bang Dream event. Outside of that, the other notable card is this. This used to be an incredibly broken card back in the past, but because of these conditions, like 5 or more, you need a full board for it to activate. Some people may, end up losing games if they forget to bounce one of Ruby's cards, and they might run into this anti-damage. But it does have decent defensive options for those that choose not to deal with it, and it has decent finishing against most sets. So I would argue that this deck is particularly good against Nikke, or at least has a good enough matchup against Nikke, because you don't care about their rest counter and you just get rid of their cards right away. So that is probably why this player made it up here, is as long as you don't have, like, to be honest, as long as they don't fight Slime, they probably end up doing fairly well. So congrats on getting Ruby back onto the map. Now here we have a fan favorite. Slime is back again, straight out of Texas. I believe this is Billy from Dallas. The problem here, right, is that no matter what, because Miron exists, because this card is a legitimate card in the game, And because they still have their hexproof assists, Slime will always be there. It can always play because it has a good enough advantage engine at level 2, and it has this card. So with these two cards, they can do whatever they want. Whether that's a bunch of Shions and say forget Benimaru, whether that's playing another level 3 combo, such as Piercing Light, or, you know, whatever level 3 you want to play. It it has the ability of modular damage and not needing a climax at level 3, and it has the ability to set up a strong board. Now, why would you play Standby over the other combos? Well, that is because it's probably the most reliable at setting up a board quicker than the others, while the other version that you guys are probably familiar, which is Comeback Pants or Comeback Gate, whatever you want to call these climaxes here, is like using an on reverse combo to search it out. While this just triggers a bunch, you're hoping that you trigger Standby to either pull a Miron out at level 1 or pull the Hexproof Assist. And then you try to use your other tools such as Brainstorm, such as Veldora, you know, check top 4. Like, you just try to use other tools to find your Mirons. You know, especially this card here can help quite a bit as well. So Slime will always be good for that fact, right? Hexproof, stock swap at level 0, so it threatens at any point in the game. And mind you, other decks that do not play this level 1 combo, they're going to have a hard time playing stock swap at level 2 because this gets you extra stock, right? It's not pay 1 dual trigger. It's like trigger check twice, so you get the extra stock. So if you play 3 of these, you get 6 stock. What does that mean? You can still play stock swap and drop 2 of these Mirons. So it threatens stock swap earlier than the other variant of Slime that plays Miron specifically. So, you know, congrats on getting top cut. Slime will always be a deck that's good for these reasons. It just gets to ignore everyone. So now we have Kaguya, which is something we haven't seen since the Voldemort era, you know, 2019, 2020. But they got some new tools since then, and they got slightly less restricted off the ban list. Or if not completely restricted off of it. And it is, you know, there. I personally commend this player for getting here this far. Because I personally don't believe in this set, but, you know, maybe this player has been playing it forever and has been training, you know, in the woods and was like, I'm, you know, one of my friends always says, like, if there's that guy that's playing like a very niche deck and they know how to fight everything in the meta, that's the guy you got to be scared of. And this might be this Kaguya player here. I mean, it gains, you know, standard, you know, gains advantage through this level 1 combo. It does play this, which I've never seen before. But all this is that it just moves dudes around and gives power. So what ends up happening here is, I'm guessing you can try to control the board a little bit here. And then you have this finisher that is similar to the Mikasa from AOT, just, you know, the on, you know, one's resonant burn 1 and on reverse burn 1. And it's just like 5 to 6 burn 1s, which can kill from level 3 fairly easily, but if levels 2, it's a little bit trickier. But remember this, Kaguya does have this card right here. Not this card right here. Is this player playing it? I don't see it. Kaguya has a level 0 stock swap, similar to Slime. And I may not be seeing it here. I guess it's not here. It's literally the same effect as Slime. I think you know, in theory he should be playing it, or this player should be playing it, but that's one of the things that makes Kaguya strong. I guess he just didn't have room for it. That would be the only explanation, that the stuff, all of these different combos in these events, they didn't have room for it, and that might have been the issue here. But yeah, it has a decent level 1 combo into, you know, being able to swap on the board. and then being able to finish. So it has a little bit more direction than a deck like 8 Standby Hololive, and leading up to it, but it's has a similar play style of trying to control the board and blowing out the opponent at level 3, hoping that the opponent is close to dead. So this finisher can close it out. You do lack defensive options in this set, so you are taking a risk on if you have to like tank turns or survive. But it is in my opinion, okay set. So congrats for getting Kaguya up there. It'd be curious to know how your matches actually went. So that would be really interesting to know, like the type of matches. And if you ever want to, come on a video on a podcast or something, just comment below. We can talk, because I'm genuinely interested on how this deck performed leading up to your placing at the top cut. But yeah, congrats for attempting to revive Kaguya from the dead. So now we're breaking into top 8, and these are the decks to look at because these guys won the 16 match and moved forward. In Rurouni Kenshin, now this is interesting because I'm sure people thought Rurouni Kenshin could top, but I don't think they thought this build could top. This build is very interesting. It has a reoccurable level 1 combo because it has Encore. It has 8 2-soul triggers, so damage output when triggering climaxes is absurd. It also has a bunch of other soul triggers in the deck, right? You have a total of 31 soul triggers, so you're having more soul triggers than a deck like Kaguya in its prime. So it means that it is a fake 2-soul deck. It is dealing 3/3/3 every time you play a climax, majority of the game, and it has a slight RNG finisher, right? It's a card that restands. But if you have enough resources, you can deal 5 damage. So multi-instance there. Outside of that, Rurouni Kenshin it has like a lot of the standard tools you'd expect from a Weiss set, right? You got your brainstorms. It can literally, like, this is interesting. Like, I thought this was a really unique effect, but like you can pay 2 and you can just outright grab a climax from your deck, as long as it matches a climax in a way. It means that it's like almost impossible to whiff the combo. You have other effects here, just generic effects to keep the deck going. Like I always tell you guys, this type of drop searcher is insane. Being able to just get triple combo almost every game. You have other cards here to your disposal, just more soul triggers and things that can deal extra damage. But yeah, I want to say this, like, back in the old days of Weiss, when a deck did high soul output, it could not keep advantage. But now, this is probably the 3rd deck introduced into Weiss in the last 8 years, or we'll say like 5 years, 5 to 6 years, that can output a lot of soul damage while still having tools that normal decks have. Right? It resembles a normal deck. It's not like some troll deck someone came up with and was just there to make people suffer. It has real abilities in it. It has real effects that help alleviate some of the RNG in the game, and it can close the game out with a decent finisher. Restands, I consider restanders, average finishers. They're no longer good. They're just like decent, acceptable average in the current state of the game. But I do say that this is really nice. An advantage engine with Encore is, in my opinion, very good, because what ends up happening is when the opponent reverses this card, you will have to like brainstorm to try to find it back. Same thing we talked about Bang Dream, that this is recurable, and you can keep getting the advantage and revenge killing the opponent's cards. Other than that, like I said, I think high soul output, decent deck states, decent finisher, decent advantage. A deck like this, as long as it doesn't eat like 1.5 to 2 levels of damage, it has a fairly good shot at winning. So, and I know this was another local from Houston, so congrats on winning or getting top 8. with Rurouni Kenshin. So yeah, the takeaway here is high soul output. So it means that if the opponent is in a wobbly deck state, they triggered 2 climaxes, it's ignoring, like, it's still going to do what it wants to do while dealing damage. So it means that it doesn't have to go out of its way to deal damage. And this is why Kaguya was so strong. So you could think of this similar to Kaguya, except a much worse finisher. But at least you have 4 of them, so you're not going to have to spend, like, a level or 2 dancing around your deck looking for Guras with the current limit list. So the other deck that does run a lot of soul triggers in the current format is if someone plays Nikke. There is a variant that can run like a bunch of soul triggers. But outside of that, this is the other one outside of Kaguya or Kali Aqua. So congrats again. And, Rurouni Kenshin made it into top 8 in singles. Pretty cool. So the next deck on top 8 is, I guess you would say it's somewhat unique in a sense that we haven't seen someone try to break away from Miron. I believe this is yet another Houston local that made it back into top 8. This is Diablo Choice remove finisher. So this remove finisher was in set 2. It was the strongest finisher in the set at the time. It's just that you didn't really have any good advantage engines at the time to support it. Now we have Diablo to help with it. The reason why Diablo, it may be an on reverse combo, but in, like, AOT is gone, right? Like, people aren't trying to avoid reverses anyway. They're trying to rush you down with 3 level 0s and try to take advantage of first deck to, put you behind. So Diablo capitalized on that by allowing you to get a lot of resources. It's check top 4, you get 1 to stock, 1 to hand. So what does this allow you to do? Well, not only does it allow you to get stock for your finisher, but it enables this card, which is the most annoying card in Slime, from the very beginning. So from level 1 onward to level 2. The problem why this one's very hard to pull off in other Slime decks is when you're running Miron, you generally save that 3 stock for Miron itself. You don't have to worry about that. You have Dressed Up Rimuru over here, which allows you to encore your Diablo and allows you to at least get 1 more Diablo the next turn. Outside of that, the deck just has tools to just allow it to get specific cards, right? You have the Hakro that allows you to grab 0s from your waiting room. This is just, I'm assuming it's just in here for a soul trigger. It is kind of big, so it can kill things. Costless cards and soul triggers are pretty good. We have our hexproof package, this and the Brainstormer. So this allows us to not care about rest counter and other disruptive counters in the game. Then you have the Hakuro over here, which I assume... So this Hakuro does not get big enough to counter Miron. So I'm assuming this person put it in to stop Alice from Nikke, because it removes it and it's gone. For at least, until they try to get it back again through grabbing it from the waiting room and stuff like that. And you may ask, why Benimaru? Well, what this finisher allows you to do is whatever the last finisher of this is, the card you summon out is Benimaru. And that allows you to extend extra damage than you would have. So instead of, what is this? This is, instead of like 7 instances of damage, it extends it to like 8. Other than that, it has like the basic tools in Slime, right? This to make sure you don't whip your Benimaru. It has your climax swap. It doesn't run Blue Gate, so you have to like run ways of finding your climax. Your clock buses, your oversizes. You have Gazelle to bounce in case you need to deal with like Negstol and other things. So it is a pretty good, I guess, outline of what you can do if you don't want to use Miron. And of course, there are different ways to attempt to build this deck, but at least this player made it all the way to top 8. Through all the decks that he fought. So I would be curious to know what decks this player fought going up to his loss in top 8. One thing to note, and it's something that Bushiroad has been trying to limit, We call them, whatever you want to call them, but high damage finishers in multiple instances. So things like Gura, Aki, and stuff like that. You can think of this as like each one it summons is an extra burn 3. I think if players are not actively checking their deck state before the slime player hits level 3, they can get blown out by the fact that this finisher can push quite a bit of damage. It is really good at pushing 9 damage specifically. So if you're around 2-5, you have a high probability of dying if you're not like in a good deck state. So I think that's one of the reasons why this player made it so far, is that this finisher is really good at pushing damage. Other than that, I think, this may be a marker to, maybe if we don't want to play Miron, maybe we can look for other things in Slime to play to fit the meta. So, yeah, congrats to making top 8. Next, we have a triple climax combo. Sora, Miko, and Marine. Looking at this deck, there's only one thing that you gotta notice for this deck. It's this card right here. And like Kanata, like Alice from Nikkei, like all these other decks that run early plays, if you get 3 of these out and your opponent can't answer it, you're not going to be in for a good time. Now, what this is battle. You could choose an opponent's character and give it -2 soul. So it does not work on Hexproof. Unfortunately, this deck's worst matchup is Slime. But I'm guessing they were like, yeah, Slime isn't so, it's not played at high quantity. So here we go. We're just going to go with it. And just in case they do fight Slime, they have Marine to back it up. It is a little bit risky, I want to say, playing one, comeback trigger. But, I mean, as long as it doesn't get hit to clock through refresh damage, you should be able to get it. The one interesting thing about this deck, right, compared to, like, other, I guess, early play decks or early out decks, is the fact that you're running standby. So if you standby this out at level 1, if these swords are still in your deck or in your waiting room, because you can have this, you can actually get triple level 3s out at level 1, which is very detrimental to the opponent. Because a lot of players cannot answer these cards specifically at level 1. Most players can at level 2 if they try, and they have the text for it, but at level 1, it's going to be tough. And, you have these other cards just to push damage, stabilize and stuff like that. So I assume that's what ended up happening. So when you actually sit there and you don't take damage, right? You're not reliant on your climaxes to block damage, and you're just stopping cards left and right from dealing damage. You're going to get extra turns. Extra turns convert to extra resources, which then you can, prep for Marine and stuff like that. Like, you can even go like, I'm going to climax swap and just get this right away and just keep it in your hand. I'm pretty sure if you see this, you death grip it, because at the end of the day, this is only 4 stock to push 6 damage. So that's really good. So yeah, congrats for making here. We haven't really seen this variant of the deck in a while since Hololive just came out. Yeah, it's interesting to see that people, you start to notice a trend here. People that play a heavy early game or like level 2 game, they're tending to break top 16 a lot easier, because they're trying to go against the grain of 1k1 souls. Like Bang Dream and stuff like that, because this kind of disrupts anything you can do to prevent the opponent from doing what they normally do. That will help greatly. And this is definitely a threat your opponent has to think about. And if they don't have the outs to it, then they probably lost the game. So here we have a variant that we saw when 7 Deadly Sins was running around. This is Miron with this power out of this world Millum. And it destroys level 0s in the back row whenever it uses its combo. So as long as this player fought decks that rely on back row and cannot reoccur them easily, you're at a huge lead. Because let me tell you the things that ends up happening here, right? Like, if the opponent sees this card, they might be inclined to keep their back row in their hand, which means they're not using it. But then if they play their back row, it could just die. So you're stuck at two bad like points in the game where you're like, I need to use this to find my cards, but I'm too scared to play it because it can get destroyed. So unfortunately, that leaves players in a predicament where they are battling themselves, and it causes like confusion, you know, when they're thinking through their plays. At least that's the way I see it, looking at this type of combo. And while they're busy conserving their resources, the slime player is trying to sculpt their Mirons. Because unfortunately, this level 1 combo really sucks at grabbing specific cards. It just grabs random cards on top of the deck. So, yeah, and they're not playing the 0/0 that, like, goes with this, so the skeleton becomes worse. So, one of the downsides of this deck is if it's in a bad deck state, like it's out a bunch of CXs early, it'll tend to not do too well because it can't, you know, mill its deck out. The advantage here is that Miron should be able to stabilize the game in most scenarios. Other than that, it's your standard list, right? Like, Hexproof is really strong. Once I find it, it's really strong. He's running anti-change counter, so this allows you to deal with, you know, these early play decks we talked about. A lot of cards are very, like, base 500 power, so cards like this can destroy all the opponent's cards. Things like Bang Dream, things like Hololive that have a lot of 500 power cards, goodbye. Also can pump cards. So, all in all, congrats from getting here. It's definitely a deck that has proven to work time and time again. Now we move on to one of the newer sets in the game, Azure Lane. It just got a second set. I'll be honest with you, I hate this deck. Not this deck, I hate this set. I hate 8 specific cards, but I respect it too. In a sense that, why not? Right? The main drive for Azure Lane players is these 8 cards here in the early game. This is a level 0 that finds this vanilla and gives this vanilla 1k 1 soul. Then while this vanilla is on the field, it gives this card 3k 1 soul. So this is a 3500 beater, 2 soul, and this is a 4k beater, 2 soul. And then if you have another one of these, it goes up to 5k 3 soul. So that becomes kind of annoying for the opponent, but it's not a plus, right? It's an exchange. So if the opponent gets rid of this, they tend to lose a lot of hand, the Azure Lane player does. That's why, you know, now you have better level 1 combos, you have better, you know, you have standbys, you know, you have other ways of getting your advantage in case it does get answered with the new set. But it's very disruptive, right? It takes advantage in the earliest possible point of the game where players cannot deal with them because you don't have resources, you know, to expend. So if you like block too much at level 0 and you can't get to 1 and these stay on the turn for another turn, or like another, like, you know, turn, it's going to be horrible for the opponent. They're going to eat a lot of damage at that point. So the reason why you didn't see this as often is not so much because of the new set, but more so because 7 Deadly Sins was in the meta. And when 7 Deadly Sins before the ban list was in the meta, they all ran 4 Escanor bombs, which allowed you to get rid of these easily. So it kind of deterred Azure Lane players from even playing Azure Lane or you know, overextending at early games because that kept them in check. The other thing with this deck is, as you notice, it's 36 soul triggers, right? Because their Clock Plus is a soul trigger, and they have a lot of costless cards soul trigger, and they're running standby. So how did this deck make it here? I truly believe that, you know, if you have a lot of soul damage without having to try and have a lot of soul damage, like you're not forcing it in your deck, you have a high chance of topping, because if the opponent's not, you know, stabilizing and thinking about their deck states, they can just eat a bunch of damage. Also, because it runs standby, the extra soul triggers help make up for the fact that standby does not push damage, you know, on its climax. Its finisher, it's just a bunch of burn ones, depending on soul triggers. So you can see kind of how this game plan goes, right? I play cats. I push my opponent up. I hit standbys. I get these 2/2s. I get these 3/2s. I get all these standby targets. I maintain board. Opponent loses cards. I keep attacking them while I gather my resources to just drop this on them at level 3. So, it is an interesting deck. I myself haven't fought this deck, before, but I can see the vision, and the vision involves making your opponent's life miserable. But yeah, that's it. Also, there is this neat little brainstormer here that can deal 1, heal 1. So like this, the maximum burns this can do, I believe, is 7. And then if you do this, it's 8. So you're looking at, on average 5 to 7 burn ones. So that is quite a bit of damage. Then you also have this Belfast. This is a little bit, this is kind of similar to Alice in a sense, just a worse condition to get out. But it does kick cards to the opponent's top of the deck. So what this means is you can deal more guaranteed damage. So, yeah, congrats for making it this far. I heard you were terrorizing people throughout Swiss. Now, this is second place, 8 standby Hololive. I'm not going to go over third because second and third play a similar play style, so I'm going to just use second place as a model. It's just different combos, but still solves the same premise. Still the same premise. So, 8 standby Hololive. Why would you even play this, right? Like, we haven't seen this deck since, like, I want to say since Hololive Set 2, since before Chainsaw Man. It barely made an appearance at last Worlds that we went to. So why 8 standby Hololive? Well, I will tell you this. While it is slow in the beginning of the game, it ramps up to be a threat in the mid to late game. Mainly because of this card here. Luna forces you to attack it. You can't side it. You must front, which means their counters are now active. They do run this counter, which is a rest counter, which is very disruptive. I think if your set has this and your deck allows you to play it every game, you should play it. And this is one of the few Hololive decks that can play rest counter easily. So it gets these really big cards, and you're like, oh, well, I can just anti-change them, right? Well, no, they're level 0s. So it means the only way to get rid of them easily is to either use cards that snipe level 0s, such as like the Maid from Shauna, or you run level 0 bombs, like Escanor and stuff like that. These cards involve having, some beat sticks, really big cards at level 1. Unfortunately, though, with things like Bang Dream, these ones sit like anywhere between like 65 and 75. A lot of decks can reverse that because they have a lot of earned on-turn power. So depending on the deck it fights, unfortunately, it may end up losing its board at 1, where in other matches it won't lose its board. Some really nifty features here, though, is same thing with like Kanata Marine. If you open up lanes, you can use this Toa to bring up their back row and just, make their life miserable. Standby combo is pretty decent because it kills the climax, meaning that you just need to, if you're about to refresh, you can do it with 3 cards left in deck. So all in all, I mean, it's supposed to build up resources and get as many Lunas out as possible, get the back row. There's a multitude of back row cards here, a few of them. Get them out and have your opponent, continuously take damage on their turn. Because as you can see here, when a card is reversed, you can ditch a Hololive card and burn 1. So it doesn't have a huge burst finish, but it's slowly killing the opponent over time. So I think the reason why we're seeing a resurface of a deck like this is because decks like Bang Dream and decks like Nikkei, especially Nikkei, has much weaker power than Standby Hololive. Uh, you can now deal with the two best decks in the game, and if you can deal with two best decks in the game, then you can deal with a lot of the random matchups throughout Swiss. Um, Decks like this, the reason why this, again, just like the previous deck we talked about, the reason why you see decks like this now is with 7 Deadly Sins gone again, it opens up the floor to use cards like this again easily. Because before you wouldn't dare try to do this because they'll just use the Escanor and get rid of it. So that's that. Congrats for making second place, and congrats for the third place for also playing a similar deck. But yeah, 8 Standby Hololive is coming back to terrorize people. All right, so here we have Lycoris Recoil. This is a set that kind of maybe went under the radar because people probably didn't look into it, or they were better sets that they thought they could play. But it's one of the highest damage finishers in the game when it goes off. Now, this set was already had its good finisher when it originally came out, but the problem with that was that the setup for the finisher was very hard, right? You needed like a lot of cards in your hand to play. The premium booster gave it one card that did it all. I've never seen a card do so much in Weiss as this card does. It made me feel like I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For a second. But for 3 stock, you get a Climax, you get 2 characters, you get the free summon 2 characters, and those characters get anti-event. So you can't, like, Nikkei can't drop its rest counter. All for 3 stock. That is insane, in my opinion. Like, I had to do a double take when this came out to make sure I wasn't like, make sure I knew how to read English because it's just too good. To talk about the finisher, the reason why I said outputs a lot of damage is a bunch of possible burn ones. So, if when this attacks, this gives all your other characters when it attacks, mill top card opponent's deck. If it's a 0 climax, burn 1. This is a restander. So you can kind of see, right? If you have 2 blue girls and a single restander, what ends up happening here is that this can burn 1 up to 4 times if it's lucky, right? 2 on the first attack and then 2 on the restand. And then the others, could burn 1 twice. So, because if you look, it's all your other characters, not itself. So this can only, like, this will give it to all the others. So it'll be burn 1 except for itself. Then the second one will give it to all others. So it'll be burn 1 except for the center. Like, whatever the not this card is, right? That's what I said, right? If this is 2 blues and 1 red, the red gets double burn 1. You can even go like 1 blue, 2 reds. Like, it depends on how much you want to push, like how much damage you want to push and the way you want to push it. But it is definitely an annoying finisher because you do have a brainstorm over here that when you play Climax, you can look at the top 2 cards of deck and put them in any order. So if you see a 0 Climax, you can literally put it there to get the extra burn. Other than that, that's just the level 3 takes care of itself. Like, it's like no brain takes care of itself because of this card. Because that's the case, you can spend the rest of the game either dealing with sets you don't like and also gaining resources to achieve your goal at the end game. And what I mean by that is, look what this guy's running. He's running this, right? This is a bounce and a level down. So you remember that Sora deck we talked about, right? The Neg Soul deck earlier. One of these gets rid of 2 of those. Right? Bounce 1 Sora to hand, and then level down another Sora. And they lost 2 early plays. Same thing with the Kanata deck as well. So that takes care of that. You have this. So if this means you can spend your stock to fix your deck state, and then if you crash a bunch of cards, you're able to easily get your stock back. There's even this. This takes care of 8 Standby Hololive. It's a level 0, Suicider, and it can become a plus. Like, it replaces itself. That's insane. I would say that, like, even from the first set, the zeros in this set are insane. Like, they just have, like, random good effects, right? I mean, you're probably saying, like, oh, there's barely yellow. How does he even play this card? This card clocks from waiting room, so you can set up yellow fairly easily. It's not a problem if you know it's a match you need it. You have stock shuffle. The set doesn't have stock swap, but it has stock shuffle, so you still have some form of dealing with your opponent's deck state. So it's all in all like an all-around deck. Like it's a solid deck going from 0 to 2, and then it has a finisher that can do absurd amounts of damage. I believe his Swiss score was X2, and then he went XO in top cut. So congrats to Long for, making a name for himself for a Lyco record. Lyco Recoil? Yeah, Lyco Recoil. Oh, there he goes. Lycoris Recoil. But yeah, it's an interesting set. I have not had experience playing this set. I didn't buy this set because unfortunately I didn't think they would have released a premium booster, but they did, so I missed out on a good set to play. But yeah, I do think this set's solid, and it definitely has the ability to take regionals fairly easily behind a skilled player. So yeah, that wraps up the BCS Houston of 2025. I will be in Pasadena this coming weekend, so we can see how that goes there. Look at the people that win there. Maybe we get some interviews with some other players. So catch you guys on the next video.